Ukrainians getting acquainted with their new top general, President Zelensky bowing to public pressure and sacking a predecessor vilified for forcing the ouster of popular reformist defense minister Mikhailo Fedorov, who's now been offered a new cabinet post. As to this new military commander, his name is Mikhailo Drapaty. He's promising change in tactics. Orlando Souza has more.
Mikhailo Drapaty.
An announcement from Ukraine's president driven largely from the street. Mikhailo Drapaty owes his job as commander-in-chief to the protests that have rocked Ukraine for days. In an effort to quell the unrest in the middle of the war, Vladimir Zelensky was forced to listen.
Mikhailo Drapaty is capable of changing the course of the war. I think the president made a very good decision. I'm expecting positive changes.
Mikhailo Drapaty is well respected for his military record. Since 2014, he has been regarded as a hero after leading a dramatic operation to rescue hostages during the Battle of Marioupol. And before the invasion in 2022, he was already warning Ukrainians about the threat from Moscow.
In the face of the Russian Federation's growing aggression, we must remain combat ready at all times. We must be prepared for any eventuality.
Over the past 4 years, Mikhailo Drapaty has held several senior military positions. He's spoken out against corruption within the armed forces and has at times challenged decisions made by Vladimir Zelensky. Recently, he was against the dismissal of Mykhailo Fedorov as defense chief, a move which sparked the unrest in the streets.
And for more, let's turn to our Ukraine correspondent, Gulliver Cragg. Gulliver, doing the rounds on social media, those images of Mikhailo Drapaty's mechanized unit storming into Marioupol back in 2014. Perhaps we can show those up on the screen. How will his leadership be different? Yeah, how will his leadership be different?
So you just played the video there of him riding that tank. Those images are absolutely legendary in Ukraine and probably in large part the source of his popularity among the general public. But those more in the know, and particularly in the army, really have a lot of respect for Mikhailo Drapaty as a modernizer, as somebody who is absolutely on board with the ousted defense minister Mikhailo Fedorov's idea, which is that you cannot fight a large Soviet army with a small Soviet army. You cannot match the Russians stormtrooper per stormtrooper, if you like. You have to find asymmetrical ways of waging this war for Ukraine. So although he's legendary, if you like, for being seen on a tank, he's now very much a partisan of modernizing Ukraine's way of waging war. Drones, of course, also land drones, buggies, unarmed sea vessels, all that kind of thing. He's in that camp of the new modernizers in the Ukrainian armed forces. And up until his nomination yesterday to be the Chief of General Staff, he was seen as a victim of the old guard's habit of trying to stop young stars rising up. That's something that both Volodymyr Zelensky and Alexander Syrsky were very much criticized for. And so Mikhailo Drapaty was promoted and then demoted after making sort of minor errors. And we were listening to Taras Chmut, who's the head of the Come Back Alive charitable foundation and a very respected war analyst and a former soldier himself. And he was saying that the old guard had this terrible habit of putting new people in positions where they'd be forced to make errors and then use that as an excuse to demote them. So the hope is that they won't actually be up to those old tricks again, because Mikhailo Drapaty certainly faces a tough situation. There's a lot of optimism in Ukraine at the moment because of these continual strikes deep inside Russia. But the reality is that the Russian forces are still advancing in Donbass with great determination, albeit very slowly. And there are a lot of tough challenges, and any kind of change in the operational workings of the armed forces are necessarily going to cause disruption, which will be something that the Russians will try to capitalize on, of course.
And that generational clash played out in public between his predecessor and the tech-savvy former defense minister Mykhailo Fedorov. He's reportedly been offered a new post. Do we know more?
I don't know more details about what the new post is, unless there's some news that's come in just in the last few minutes. He hasn't formally accepted any new post, and it's been rather ambiguous what exactly he plans to do. He thanked General Syrskyi after Volodymyr Zelensky ousted him for his service and praised the decision to appoint Mikhailo Drapaty. Mikhailo Fedorov was always, a fan of Mikhailo Drapaty. They were mutual admirers of each other. But it looks like Yevhen Khmara, who's currently acting defence minister, who has to be confirmed by Parliament, and that can't happen before October the 18th unless Parliament is recalled for an emergency session. He is now setting out his plans. He wrote a post also talking about how he was looking forward to working with Mikhailo Drapaty. It looks like Yevhen Khmara thinks that he's going to be confirmed in that position as defence minister, although it's controversial because he is a military man and it's supposed to be a civilian according to the Ukrainian constitution and to NATO standards. So how that's going to be resolved, we don't know. Meanwhile, Yevhen the veteran who had Dmytro Kozyatynsky. Dmytro Kozyatynsky is the veteran who originally called just over a week ago for protests in support of Mykhailo Fedorov. He said the job's not done and is calling on people to protest again this Friday and to carry on protesting until Mykhailo Fedorov is returned to his position as defence minister. So for the moment, it's all unclear, although if Mykhailo Fedorov does accept an alternative position, then I suppose the protest will be called off.
Gulliver Cragg reporting live. Many thanks for that update.